So, but am I in the center of the left? Yes, I'm in the center of the left, and so is Anna. So, like, people catch feelings over that, but the polling shows it, elections show it, everything shows we're in the center of the left, and I'm proud to be there.
If you're claiming that you and Anna are both the center of the left, then why do you go around calling yourselves the champions of the progressive media? Because if I want to watch center-left media, I'm just going to go to CNN. Like, what's the difference? Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine, and today we're going to be talking about Cenk and Francesca. I guess they went on a debate with each other. I don't really know what to expect. Honestly, it's Cenk, so make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this, and let's get into it.
Who is the establishment and who is not the establishment?
Great question. So Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, all the corporate Democrats who take corporate PAC money, serve their corporate donors 100%, lie to us 24/7, never intend to do any progressive policy positions, never intend to do any democratic policy positions that they state in campaigns, and are backed by the liars in mainstream media, pretending that they're on our side when they're playing good cop, bad cop with establishment Republicans and robbing us blind on behalf of their donors.
Do you think that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are establishment?
So they're complicated.
This man sounds like a Republican. Like, this man sounds like a fucking Republican. How do you say Donald Trump is complicated, but Gavin Newsom is a part of the establishment? They're both a part of the establishment, babe. That's literally the point. That's, oh my God. He fell for the non-establishment bullshit. He fell for it all. Honestly, for someone like Cenk, I would have expected him not to fall for that shit, but apparently he did. How is Donald Trump not establishment? That is actually insane. Donald Trump is the literal epitome of establishment. Not only is he a representation of establishment, he's also a representation of the 1% bourgeoisie class in America that can get away with everything. Like, what? That man is worse than establishment. What are you talking about?
They act like the establishment. They do the same robberies, the same corporate tax cuts, but they are pretending to be populists. And that's why I've called Donald Trump a fake populist hundreds of times, right? And I've called him a fake populist on right-wing shows. And I've said, hey, watch out for your own donors on right-wing shows, right? But they are not part of this the machine that was the Borg. Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden were the co-captains of the Borg, and that machine was unstoppable, maintains corporate rule, and that's my mortal enemy.
So do you think it's less bad that one person donates $277 million to a candidate versus 5 people donating $277 million to a candidate? Elon Musk gave $277 million to Donald Trump and is now, again, worth $400 billion. Is that somehow less establishment in your mind?
Well, the way that it's better is that it's not a machine. It's chaotic. So it's one guy here and another person there, but the other person disagrees with Miriam, and then Trump doesn't quite know what to do, and he listens to the last person in the room, but he also kind of listens to his base. We've got chaos there, and chaos is way better than a machine. A machine is ruthless and just steamrolls you.
Let me make this point clear. Just because Miriam Adelson is a single billionaire giving Donald Trump a bunch of money so that she can hold one of his balls in his hands doesn't make it any better than any corporation or PAC. It just means that a single woman can control him now. And just because there's less players in that doesn't make it any better. I personally thought that was common sense. Apparently that's not. But whenever a multi-billion-dollar person or corporation or entity or PAC is donating to you and setting up a bunch of rules for you, that's literally how a machine works. That's a part of the machine. Now, Cenk is trying to argue that just because it's a woman and she's the single donor, it makes it a little bit better because now there's no extra players in the field. I don't fucking get it. It's like the same shit. I mean, listen, you can have a big bag of shit and you can paint it in rainbow colors and put little unicorn stickers on it. But you know what it is at the end of the day? It's still a big bag of shit, okay? So whether it's a PAC or a billionaire or a corporate entity, what is it gonna be? No matter what the bag is colored in or what art is on the bag, it's still a big bag of shit. So I don't know what else to say. Like, it's pretty fucking simple.
Okay, I do want to talk about the McConnell-Biden era and establishment a little bit more, but just on that, I feel like my very first question to you is, well, what are you doing? I feel like that's the most cogent answer I've gotten from you that I could sort of get on board with, which is exploit the chaos to turn MAGA against Trump. But even if you wanted to do that, I'm not sure you're achieving it through the kinds of interviews that you're doing and the way that you're playing to the right, especially when you go on those stages and hit the left more than you do the right. But I just want to leave that there. Except the like, hey, let's, plant the booby traps so that we can make them fall into them later, that kind of thing. That makes the most sense to me, even if I sort of strategically disagree with it. One of those things also in terms of this establishment and anti-establishment sort of framework that you're using is also Project 2025 and Russell Vogt, who he just appointed to be the head of the Office of Management and Budget. Russell Vogt would like to fire federal workers, replace them with loyalists. He also wants to use the military to target political dissidents. This is all obviously in Project 2025 that he helped to author.
Exactly.
Is that establishment or anti-establishment? There's nothing more anti-establishment than firing a bunch of federal workers. Do you believe that?
This is a very good question. And it's interesting that she asked this question because I think her goal is to say, hey, you keep going into these Republican spaces and talking about anti-establishment, but this is what those spaces that you're talking to want to do. They want to insert their own extremist agenda that's aligned with fascism. What do you think about that? Because that is technically anti-establishment. To this point, from my knowledge, she hasn't really gone on right-leaning podcasts and acknowledged their push towards fascism and their push towards really pushing their ideological beliefs onto everyone, even though it's a minority belief. And so I'm very curious to see how he actually responds to this.
That's a populist thing to do?
No, it's fake populism. And so it's so alluring to the MAGA base because they feel like, oh, we're fighting against the government. They think that the government is a blanket bad thing. So I explained that, hey, if you fire people that are at the IRS, guess who's it's going to help the most? The very rich who cheat on their taxes.
But they all want to audit the Pentagon, which the IRS doesn't do. But it's very interesting that, you got everyone to cheer auditing the Pentagon. But of course, the idea of auditing billionaires, the Republicans are absolutely against that because they've been trying to defund the IRS. Exactly.
Right. And remember, again, there's different layers of right wing now. There's their leaders who are, uniformly full of crap. Then there's, a middle bureaucracy, and then there's the voter. And the voters, those MAGA guys, they will tell you exactly what they think. They're not holding anything back. They're also not lying when they say they're anti-war, anti-corruption. They might have been misdirected, but they're not lying. So what I'm trying to get them to see is firing the federal workers is not the answer.
Yeah.
Cutting the Pentagon is part of the answer. And so one more thing that's super important, though. It's not a booby trap, Franny. I understand what you're saying, and that's one way to frame it. But in my mind, when you have people who actually agree, you're not tricking them. You're just getting them to see, guys, you wanted to cut the Pentagon, but look, your leaders didn't cut the Pentagon. So do you see how they led you astray, right? I'm actually getting them to I'm just showing them that their leaders are not doing the things that they promised.
So this is very interesting because I feel like Cenk has a very interesting perception of himself. And I think I'm starting to finally realize that here because I was always curious as to what his perception is with what he's doing, right? Like, what does he think he is doing when he's going on these right-leaning podcasts and doing X, Y, and Z? I think this man thinks that he is an innovator in this space in the sense where he's like, I am the only one going into these Republican spaces and making them realize X, Y, and Z, which sure, maybe in your mind, that's your distorted view of what you're doing. But here's my issue with Cenk, okay? You never see a Republican or a Republican talking head. For example, someone like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, whatever, you could name all of them, Charlie Kirk. You never see them go on left-leaning podcasts or shows and say, hey, to my Republicans, you guys are getting this wrong. You guys are getting that wrong. You guys are getting this, that, and the third wrong. You will never see Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh go on somewhere like TYT and say that, right? Because one things you can say anything about Republicans, but one things Republicans will always do is they will always have a united front. Always. It doesn't matter what it's about, they will always have a united front. Very rarely will you see Republicans eat each other up alive the way that leftists do all the time. And it's just this is the way it's always been, okay? We have a lot of differences on the left side. They don't have many differences on the right side. They have core tenets that they all believe in and they all follow, okay? Now, what Cenk is doing, in my opinion, is very hurtful towards our movement because he's going on Turning Point argument with Charlie Kirk, and he's like, leftists, you don't understand this, you don't understand that, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. And then he looks at the crowd and he's like, but right-wingers are starting to get it. You guys believe in trans rights, right? And then half the crowd boos. So, it's one of those things where it's like, I think he has a very distorted perception of what he's actually doing, because in his mind, he thinks he's this innovative crusader in these spaces, when in reality, he's doing more harm than good. Because the more you point at leftists and you say, Sam Cedar, you're a fraud, the serfs, you're a fraud, you guys are all grifters, and then you go on these right-wing podcasts and you're like, my Republicans, you guys are so nice, thank you so much for always accepting me, yeah, you're not gonna do that great.
So I just really want to, just drill down on a couple of those things on this new MAGA, old MAGA thing. I've heard you say new MAGA, as you talk about anti-corruption, anti-war. Cenk, they were like that in 2016, man. I mean, let's be honest. The reason Donald Trump just destroyed the Republican primary was absolutely being an outsider, right? And sort of purported seemingly anti-establishment, even though, he's a billionaire, part of the elite. But it really was around being against the Iraq war. Now, for his reasoning was, we should have taken all the oil, F those, whatever, like enter expletive, right? Which I think gets to another point. But he was also, remember, in terms of the corruption stuff, what was it? They wanted term limits. They had term limits and were suggesting them early on. So the outgrowth of an entire country tired of 8 years of Bush and endless war, and also that was, suffering from the 2008 financial collapse and didn't have any faith in the banks and these financial institutions and all the politicians that protect them and take, that was already in the ether, right? And you had a Bernie Sanders and you had Donald Trump. And of course, the actual establishment, that the centrists that I hate as well, were trying to say Bernie is exactly like Donald Trump. Look at him. He's using the same. No. They were very different. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about the differences between right-wing populism and left-wing populism. I think there is a difference, and there's a very important difference. That difference is historical as well. Right-wing populism often feeds off of nativism, off of othering immigrants, religious minorities, blaming those people, and then we can have the socialism, right? That's why obviously in Hitler's Third Reich, you've got a National Socialist Party, right? This is Germany for the Germans. And there are people who are in Germany are the Germans and people who are not the Germans. That also in this country, although you scoff when I talk about Chinese Americans, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act, specifically dividing working class people in this country based on race, saying the Chinese are the reason you don't have anything. They're the ones taking all of our jobs, even though we know that the rich robber barons were absolutely taking advantage of them, just like we know that all the Trump donors who paid for their positions in this administration are also taking advantage of undocumented labor. So do you see a difference between right-wing populism and left-wing populism? And are you not barking up not just the wrong tree, but a very, very dangerous one?
Like that was rough to watch. That was really rough to watch, but because I think Francesca kind of took all the points that all of us have been saying and condensed it down in a way where Cenk would understand. And number one, not only is that a very hard thing to do because Cenk is kind of in his own world and on his own route, and like no one can really get him off that route or the way he's thinking, but also she really just kind of gave all of her points with factual and historical context, and everything she said was factually right. I don't know how he's going to respond to that. We just saw the arguments that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump were having on Twitter, right? It was like, oh, H-1B visas. We love H-1B visas. And then other Republicans were like, no, fuck that. H-1B visas are worker visas and they're taking jobs from us. But then Vivek Ramaswamy was like, you can be racist to everyone, just not us Indians type vibe with his tweet. But it goes to show, like, no matter how much you go into their spaces and you pander and you try to make it seem like you're a part of them, you will never be one of them because their populist belief is rooted out of racism and exclusion. And so, you can try to join their party and bark up their tree as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be a dirty immigrant. And just because you're a model minority doesn't make you any less susceptible to the racism as an indigenous or a black or a Middle Eastern person would receive. And I think a lot of people didn't really realize that, maybe up until this weekend.
No, I think there's a massive difference. And so first, let me just really quickly address what you said about the Chinese. So the Chinese were the only nationality ever banned from America. Trump considered a Muslim ban, but didn't actually execute one. Chinese were actually banned from America for a long time. So I know all about racism against Chinese, and obviously that also sprung up during COVID, et cetera. But I just in that heated moment there, I was saying that the Chinese, are maybe third or fourth in line these days. Muslims and
not from what they're talking about. I mean, I'm just looking at what they're saying, which is like this would be the easiest group to sweep up. Like I'm just saying, not like Chinese immigrants who've been here for decades. No, I understand. That's why I said that. I didn't just pick it because I'm Chinese. I literally just looked at what they're talking about. But anyway. But
My
so you
kids are
do
Chinese,
agree.
so
You
I'm not.
Sure.
I'm worried about it.
You agree that there is a difference between left-wing populism and right-wing populism.
Yeah. So now let's get to the core of it.
First of all, I didn't even know Francesco was Chinese. I had no fucking idea. Yeah, I think that response was just disingenuous, just like all of his other conversations. I mean, that's not surprising.
The establishment is generally like, we don't really care if you're Chinese, Muslim, whatever. The only color we care about is green. As long as we let us rob you from here to eternity, I'm good with it. We'll allow Peruvians to rob you, Jews, Muslims, Christians, everybody can rob you, right? And so
And the establishment is, again, just Biden, Kamala Harris,
McConnell, everyone who takes corporate
McConnell,
donations and serves corporate donors, okay?
but not
So
Donald Trump, because he
95%.
doesn't take corporate, except for all the corporate money he's taking, but he's different. Okay, keep going. Okay,
Wait,
I'm just trying to understand who the establishment is and isn't.
Corporate PAC money. I mean, how many times can I call him a big populist before you believe me? Okay, so the establishment is better on social and cultural issues than the populist right is. So that's why, like, this is not, you can't make blanket things like, in my opinion, never talk to them. They're all racist, etc.
I never said that. I never said not to talk to him. I never said that.
Hold on. Or they're all lovely and they've all turned and they're all amazing and are going to agree with us. No, of course not, right? So, but on economic issues, we agree a lot more, way more. And that's super important. And so, and you know what it is, Franny? They're using the culture wars, in my opinion, to create a wedge between us. That's why they're called wedge issues, to get us to hate one another instead of realizing that the problem isn't to our left or right. It's up, look up. The problem is up, right? I don't want to empower the Steve Bannons of the world and the Ann Coulters of the world to do their crazy stuff, right? That is anti-immigrant, anti-my family, anti-me, anti all the people we care about, the American people, the left, everyone. But we get to fight them on that, Franny. We don't have to say like blanket Steve Bannon's great, Charlie Kirk's great. No, and I've been so clear about this.
So you think you've been fighting?
Right.
You think you've been fighting them?
Oh, on the issues we disagree on? Hell yeah.
Okay, so hold on real quick. You and I on this channel have watched many different appearances that both Anna and Cenk have gone on with these Republican shows. Do you think he's been fighting them? Because 90% of all of this shit that's coming out in the drama is literally because they go there to stroke their egos, not fight them. I've seen Cenk fight. I have seen him argue, honey. What I have not seen him do is argue Republicans. If anything, I've seen him go on different streams and shit talk leftists the whole entire time. Sure, like you are kind of arguing with leftists without them actually being there, which is kind of a weird move, but whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Fighting them, I don't know about all that. That's a little delusional.
That show over trans girls in high school sports, they're outraged by it, and they're like, oh, what if your daughter comes in second place in cross country? I'm like, who gives a crap? What are you guys are going to check the genitalia of millions of kids because you're on this like transphobic like mania? Just settle down. These are culture wars. They're dividing us. Stop letting them divide us.
I think one thing that's really hard, and this is just in general, like we can talk about trans issues. I actually want to play a clip from your Turning Points conference, but I do just think that one of the biggest issues for me that is not hypothetical, it's very real, which is the right to an abortion. And that is one thing that I think a lot of the so-called right-wing populists don't really give a shit about, especially not the mouthpieces of Donald Trump. They don't care that women are bleeding out from miscarriages and dying.
I've said this before. If you fundamentally do not believe that I should have birthright citizenship in America, or if you believe that my parents who both have stage 4 cancer do not deserve health care, or if you, for example, just fundamentally believe that any Middle Eastern person is a terrorist, but you know, we can both agree on labor issues. Yeah, fuck you. I don't want to work with you. You know what I mean? It's that fucking simple. But also, one point that Francesca tied this into, which is absolutely like genius, she did such a good job at this, is the fact that Cenk is falling into the same culture war right-left bullshit. He goes at Turning Point with Charlie Kirk and he's like, you know what? Leftists, you guys suck. You guys do this, that, and the third wrong. Everyone here who's Republican, they're all nice. Leftists are mean, right? He is doing the same exact alienation tactic that Kamala Harris did during her campaign. And how did that work out for her? It was terrible. It was embarrassing. She had an embarrassing presidential run. Okay, and I'm all for chasing your dreams and shit, but at some point your dreams just, if they're not realistic, they're not realistic, hun. You know what I mean? But anyways, going beyond that, what Kamala Harris did was she did a lot of this finger pointing, right? The right this, the right that, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, they're Nazis, they're this, they're that. What did it do? It politically divided all of us. What did two things that Obama and Bernie Sanders do well? They brought together everyone. These thought process when it was Obama was that we are all one. He gave this image of hope, you know, like he's with us. He is there for us. He wants us all to succeed. What image did Bernie bring about? The same thing. He understands us, working class people. There was a class consciousness across both of these candidates with both Bernie and Obama, and they resonated with the working class, with the blue collar, with the white collar, especially the white people in the suburb who tend to swing a lot based on which candidate resonates with them. But what Cenk is doing is he's falling into the same establishment bullshit, which is interesting because he's saying that he's against that establishment bullshit, right? But then he's going on all these right-wing podcasts and he's doing the same exact thing that someone like Kamala Harris did, except for the other way. And so it's just fascinating to me because I just don't really think he's fully realizing what he's actually doing and the harm he's creating and what he's cultivating for himself. I think to him, like I said, he's a crusader. He's an innovator, right? But, you know, when you're going on these podcasts and you're calling Sam Cedar a grifter and you're saying all leftists are this and you're saying the serfs are that and these people are liars and those people are crooks but Republicans are nice, you're alienating a lot of people. And that does not work. It has never worked. Alienation does not work when it comes to politics, especially on the left. You need to bring people with it together with policy. And that's something that Bernie Sanders and Obama did beautifully. Anyways, thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Absolutely off your shit if you think that the right and left are equally hateful. And that's what I'm hearing from you, that you think that somehow the left and the right, nah, they both hate equally. Both of them want to intern people. Both of them believe that some people don't deserve rights. And I want to play this because this was a very awkward moment.
Franny,
I'm a stand-up comedian.
Things that are wrong.
No,
Bernie agrees with my positions 100%.
Wait,
so
who?
what you described about Bernie is exactly me. And so that's why I'm like, what Bernie has the same positions as me, the same idea, the same framing. In fact, he's agreed with Elon Musk on cutting the Pentagon in the exact same way that I have. And yet Bernie's an angel and I'm the devil. Like, that's crazy.
No one's saying that you're the devil.
That's crazy.
Bernie actually builds, he's not making the rounds. He's not making the rounds and not pushing back. He's not pushing back.
He published an op-ed in Fox News today. He makes the rounds exactly like I do. Exactly like I do.
Good. No, I think that's important. But honestly, Cenk, like, file your nails or something, because this was not good. This was not a good look during that conference.
I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, health care, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Okay, Cenk, I'm a stand-up comic, so I listen to crowds regularly. I know when they are booing, groaning, or in this case, there is a whistle of disapproval, and I know when they are cheering. Now, let's play it again. They're not on board with trans people having the same constitutional rights.
I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, health care, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Do you want me to translate?
You got like maybe like a sixth of the audience. There's a couple people clapping very, very, no? Okay.
So, and then Franny, let's break it down.
This is the best. Wait, this is the best part. You got to keep watching because it's the best that, like, not only you get hung out to dry on this, like, can we all agree, shtick that you're on, and they don't meet you. God, and then Charlie meets you with this.
Constitutional right to housing. Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
So then he goes like, wait a minute, not only don't I not agree with you on the trans people, because he never answered it. He's like, actually, your right to housing anyway. And I know that's not even what the Constitution says. It's just equal protection around housing, right? It doesn't say you have a right to housing. I wish it did. But like, it's just amazing to me. Like, do you see? And you look at him and there's a moment, you're just kind of like, there's just this moment and it's just like, what are we doing, Cenk? Like, what's going on here?
See, this is a great example. You're being so unbelievably unfair about that interaction. Mm-hmm. The reason I did that, Franny, and I knew I was taking a big risk.
You were.
Is because I've done it on other right-wing shows and it worked really well. It didn't work really well this time. That's why it was a risk. But I challenged them on how trans people are like every American and they should have constitutional rights.
Well, let's watch a little bit. Let's watch whether you did it. Let's watch whether you did it. Did you do it or not?
Let me finish, Franny.
Did you do it or not?
Important, and you're totally smearing me on a thing that is crazy. I
I'm playing you the clip. I'm not smearing you. I'm literally playing the clip. Cenk, I'm playing the clip.
Will you let me talk? I said I had the courage to challenge them on constitutional rights for trans people. You asked me to have the courage to challenge them. I did, and now you're attacking me for it.
No, I'm not attacking. I'm not attacking you for it. I'm saying you have characterized this.
Look at this. They didn't agree with me.
No. I'm saying
I tried to get them to agree to constitutional rights. That's exactly what we should do. We should say trans people are just like every American citizens, and they should have constitutional rights. I go and have the courage to challenge that audience to that, and then you want to make fun of it? Like
I'm saying
agree with you. What do you want? Do you want me to challenge them, or do you not want me to challenge them? Make up your mind.
it was a big swing. You agreed that it was a little bit of a miss, and I think.
By the way, you're not exactly right about that either. So I was in the room. 2/3 of them cheered. 1/3 of them clearly did not, and groaned and cheered.
The people who were cheering were not mic'd properly. I understand.
He asked that question. He got a majority of boos from what I said. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe I'm wrong, right? From what I can see, it wasn't necessarily a huge cheer, right? They weren't really ecstatic about that. And then he was like, see, some of you cheered. We're getting somewhere. He didn't say, wait, you guys didn't. Why are you guys not cheering? Half of you, like, that didn't seem like challenging. It seemed more so like, I'm gonna play this little game and I'll see if I'm getting anywhere with it. And he didn't, so he kind of backtracked. And also, it's just like, I'm not gonna sit here and commend you for going on to Turning Point, okay? Any of us could go on to Turning Point and bash leftists. It's not really that hard to do. I don't know. It's just, it's delusional. It's really delusional. It's fascinating, honestly.
I think you were like, you actually gave them credit for the few people that agreed. And meanwhile, Cenk, you have so much disdain for our side. If I say, hey, I believe trans people should play in sports, you have so much disdain. You get so mad. But here you are, and here is what you say.
Constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys.
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start. So guys, when we can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right and I say it to the left.
Sure.
Okay, so
When's the last time they heard that message? Never.
Thank you for. I guess thank you, but you have so much grace for people who really were groaning and not on board with what you said.
When did I say I have grace for that?
I mean, no, you said it right there. You said, hey, I'll take it. And it was like, this is what we got to do.
2/3 of the room said, yay, trans constitutional rights. When's the last time 2/3 of AmFest
why do you not extend the same grace to so-called radical leftists?
I'm really glad we're back to this, Franny, because this is important. And we mentioned in the beginning, and I wanted to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So having grace for the left, I run the network. Everybody gets to have their own opinion. Everybody gets to fight me. Everybody gets to state their own opinion without any editorial control. First of all,
you do go ballistic on them like you went ballistic on me earlier.
Yeah,
you do get, and you you always say, you're wrong. Yeah. You want me to do that? I can do it. You're wrong. You're an idiot. You're wrong. We can do it. We know what you do when you disagree.
Okay, I'm so happy she's saying this, y'all. I'm so happy she's saying this, because what the fuck did I tell you? I've seen Cenk disagree before. That's not a disagreement. We've all seen Cenk disagree. We've all seen Cenk be angry. That was not him. Not once was he disagreeing or was he angry with that crowd. He was actually very calm and very collected and very understanding. What did I fucking tell you? Period. I didn't even watch this fucking video. Great minds think alike.
So we fight, right? When we disagree, I say you're wrong, you say I'm wrong. But is there any consequences afterwards? Do I then threaten your job? Do I take people off the air?
I mean, I barely have a job with y'all, but look, first of all, we rarely ever, back to what I'm saying, Cenk, who's your main co-host?
Anna, on the Young Turks.
When you say
that there's like over 24 Young Turks contributors and hosts.
I know, I understand that.
So but
I'm trying to tell you that there is in fact, Cenk, let's just be real. We said this privately. I'll say it publicly now. About a year ago, around the time of the trans stuff, and the trans sports stuff, you said to me, "Hey, Francesca, just so you know," and I don't think it's not a secret, but you didn't tell the audience. It was like, "Hey, just so you know, like TYT main show is kind of like mainstream progressives. Like that's sort of what we want to be, and we're more mainstream. Just so you know, we're like moderate progressives kind of thing." And I was like, "Okay." And then I said to you, "Why don't don't we have a debate?
As a person that's been covering TYT's political shift, if you want me to put it nicely, for the past couple of months, because I've been uploading it to my YouTube channel as well, I can tell you that I firmly believe that Cenk spoke to Fran as well as Mark Lamont Hill because he was getting a lot of backlash for only going on Republican and right-leaning podcasts and shows. I think if it wasn't for that backlash, he wouldn't have done it. People like myself and other leftists have called him out multiple times on our platform saying that you are very comfortable going on right-leaning podcasts, but when leftists invite you on multiple different podcasts, you don't go because you don't want to get challenged. And so he finally has now done it, which is what we're covering now. And his reactions are so adverse and he's blowing up on the leftists when he's going into Republican crowds and he's like, you guys are so nice. You guys are all my friends. Let's kumbaya and figure shit out. So, do I think Cenk is in bad faith? Do I think he's grifting? I don't know. I don't know him personally. I don't know if he's grifting or not. What I do think, though, is that his political ideology has definitely shifted within the past 3 years because I used to watch them very religiously and then they started really tanking for me. I couldn't handle it anymore. I stopped watching them. So as a person whose dream was to be a TYT contributor, and now I just honestly feel bad for them because I feel like they've really gone down this like really bad path and they continue to go down it. Like they're really willing to die on this hill. It's sad. It's really sad. And I don't know if his intentions are bad, if his intentions are good. I don't know if it's a grift. I do think he's pandering to Republicans for sure, especially at the Turning Point event. But a lot of people are saying he's a grifter, but I don't think he's grifting. I think this is genuinely what he believes.
You bring John and I on, we debate, you and Anna, we could talk about trans issues, we could talk about, crime, we could talk about all the things that always, get under our skirts. We could talk about that stuff. And that was like, you didn't seem that very excited about that.
Franny, that is a crazy standard. So first of all,
no, I'm just being honest, to say, we've never had that space.
Answer? Can I answer? Okay.
Are you mad someone's talking too much? Is Cenk either mad someone else is talking too much?
So when do I get animated? When people cut me off. That's what drives me crazy. Okay. The thing that you just said that was our private conversation, I literally said at the very beginning of this broadcast. Okay. So I said populist establishment is one spectrum and we're on the extreme end of populism. Left-right spectrum is different and we're not on the extreme of the left. I said we're kind of in the middle. Okay. So, but am I in the center of the left? Yes, I'm in the center of the left. And so is Anna. So people catch feelings over that, but the polling shows it, elections show it, everything shows we're in the center of the left. And I'm proud to be there.
If you're claiming that you and Anna are both the center of the left, then why do you go around calling yourselves the champions of the progressive media? Because if I want to watch center left media, I'm just going to go to CNN. What's the difference? There have been multiple times where Cenk has said, I am the left. I am the progressive left. I am a part of the progressive wing. And now he's saying he's center left and he's proud of it. Then you're not the home of the progressives. You're not the leader of leftist media either.
I give everybody the space to have their own opinion, and I run the network. But Cenk, even though you run the network, even if you didn't run the network, you're not allowed to have that opinion because that opinion aids and abets racist, sexist, whatever excuse we're using. But you're not allowed to have it. That's an immoral opinion, and you're not. And I do not agree to that.
I think I have been an example for the last hour of trying to hear you out on your opinion on all of this. And I feel like I've gotten, when the converse happens and I explain that I think that there's a fine line between being anti-establishment and fascistic. There's a fine line between being populist and, pro-authoritarian. That so many throughout history, authoritarians, Mussolini, have been massive populists. They were loved and liked so long as certain groups of people weren't included in that populism. And I think there's a better way to do populism. And so
okay, you tell me, Franny, what's your genius idea for how to win the voters back without ever talking to them?
Okay, she already went through this though. She said you can win back populations of people through policy, just like Bernie Sanders did. She literally explained this 10 minutes ago thoroughly, and he cut her off.
Well, here's my genius idea. Let's just say, just imagine you had the biggest YouTube channel for, progressive media. Just imagine you had that. And you had a massive failure in the Democratic establishment. Kamala Harris gets her ass handed to her. Biden didn't drop out. And people are scrambling. They're running rats off a sinking ship from MSNBC, from Pod Save America, and all these Beltway bros that lied to them about the Democratic Party having this in the bag, knowing what they were doing, that never talked about capitalism, that never talked about corporate donors, that never talked about any of that stuff. And I would love, if I had had a network to be the place where people from the center left or liberals, the wicked liberals, to come over and say, hey, let's think systematically about this. Let's think long-term about this. Let's think about political revolution. Let's think about getting serious about the 99% against the 1%. That's what I would do.
That's exactly what I'm doing. So you're welcome. I explained exactly. Hold on, let me answer.
I don't see you doing that.
Wow, this is awkward. Okay. Oh God. Okay. That is not what Cenk has been doing. Oh God. Wow. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance here. He said with that, he didn't even pause. He's like, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, no, it's not. Honestly, Francesca has way more composure than I do because I would have just started cracking up. I would have been like, wait, dude, what are you talking about?
Well, you're wrong. Again, you're wrong. So I explained how Pod Save America and The View and Morning Joe were so full of crap, pretending that they knew all along that Joe Biden had trouble. Then why didn't you say it, you liars? Why did you protect him all along? I ran against Joe Biden. I did a petition against Joe Biden. I said we should do an open primary.
Okay, wait. I really have to compose myself because this is a lot. This is a lot to take in. There's a lot to unpack here. So I ran against Joe Biden is not the answer, my guy. First of all, there's no way he was gonna win. Second of all, his campaign run was wildly unpopular. He dropped out pretty early on. God, there's a lot of ego here. There's really a lot of ego. Like, for your answer to be, well, I ran against Joe Biden, like, that's like the least productive thing you could do. It's the least productive thing you could do because you can't win. What's the point of that?
And now you've got me scared, Franny, that all of a sudden, like, if the far left peels off and agrees with the establishment and votes with them, I will lose my freaking mind. It will be the greatest betrayal of this movement that I have ever seen. So I am massively against
I don't think you consider
anyone on the left should be massively against the establishment. So what you're using is fear of the right-wing populism going south on us, which is a real fear,
going
which
south.
I'm trying to guard against, to say, like, to now all of a sudden, like, well, maybe the establishment's not so bad. No, the establishment's horrible. It's horrible. I'm not going back in that prison. I'd rather be in the populist woods with real human beings fighting and battling and trying to get to the right answer and the right coalitions than to be in an establishment prison where we're now locked up by Mitch McConnell and goddamn Dick Cheney and Joe Biden.
I understand where he's coming from. I get it, because if there's anyone that's pissed off at the Democrats, it's me. They blacklisted me. They never invited me to the White House when they invited all my mutuals. They didn't give me a creator pass at the DNC. I was barely able to get in. They didn't give me a lot of the paid opportunities that they were giving a lot of other content creators. So trust me. I don't fucking like the Democrats either. But with that being said, your solution is to go and try to work with right-wingers. I mean, I don't know. I think he has this idea of what he's doing, but I think this idea is very distorted.
Biden and Pelosi, and we're marched back into let it continue the robbery. Thank you, sir, for the robbery. We appreciate your stupid
and the right's
robbery.
not robbing people.
So,
the right doesn't rob people.
So no, but hey, look at that, Franny. Look at what you're saying. I just said 200 times in this interview that Trump's a fake populist and there's going to be a huge
concretely robbery. I don't know who you're talking about. Concretely,
so you think the right's not going to
no. I'm just like, let me just say how I see it. Just you've explained how you see it. So I've been covering Trump since 2016. We covered his rise. One of the big videos we did in AJ Plus was like, why do people like Trump, right? And everyone was like, oh no, we have to talk about why people like Trump. And it's so obvious. The outsider tells it like it is, very direct,
yes.
Not afraid to upset, the normal establishment order of like, you gotta be a politician, you gotta be this. Of course, there's a million. He's kind of funny. There's a million reasons. And my analysis has always been Donald Trump is a great brand master as an outsider, but he's a Trojan horse. That at the end of the day, even though Mitch McConnell, says his bullshit and whatever, of course he wants all the same things that Donald Trump wants. Trump is a brilliant Trojan horse for, yes, the establishment right. Look at all the neocons he's appointed.
So no, it's more complicated than that. I agree with everything you said about Trump and why he got to be popular. He ran as anti-establishment.
Right.
As a fake populist, right?
Right.
And so that's what worked really well. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a real populist on the left and ran on populist left? So I hope to God we all agree to that in the 2028 primaries. So in terms of the part that I don't quite agree on the Trojan horse, you're right. That's all he's done so far. In the first term, he had 4 freaking years. And his number one and almost only accomplishment was corporate tax cuts. Massive, massive corporate tax cuts. And in fact, on the Young Turks, back then I said, watch, the establishment's going to leave him the minute those tax cuts pass, because that was a Trojan horse part. So you're right about that, right? But Trump is uncontrollable. So that's why that's why the Mitch McConnell and the establishment fights against Trump during the primaries. They didn't want him because they want people that can be controlled. Trump is uncontrollable both in terrible ways and maybe potentially ways that could be positive. And that is why the establishment is scared to death of him, is because they're like, well, what if he does things that are populist in the right direction? No, right? Now, he hasn't yet, right? So, and the policy that you just mentioned, Franny, that's the one where the rubber hits the road. And so I am so curious what's going to happen. So Israel has absolute power at this point. And they believe, and they're drunk on power because they believe Trump is going to give them everything that they want. And in the beginning, he definitely will. That's why he nominated Team Miriam, as I explained earlier, Stefanik, Rubio, etc. Right? And so those guys will be our neocons. They will push for us to fund Israel's wars from here to eternity. If I am wrong, then there'll never be any pushback from the right-wing populists, the Maga base, and they'll be like, oh, send all of our money to Israel, start more wars. Maybe we should fight the wars for Israel. And then I'll come on your show and go on the Young Turks and say, guys, I was wrong. No, it turns out the right-wing populists, they weren't anti-war. They were just cultists, right? Or I'll be right, and some portion of that base will go, no, we're sick of funding Israel's wars. Not that they care about Muslims, but they genuinely want to get the hell out of wars, right?
Yes.
So if I'm right, when Trump pushes too far on Israel, they're going to push back. And so that's a great mystery.
I want to
see with our own eyes.
Yes. And I want to say, for the record, I'm not against, here's what I'm not against: bringing those people into the fold of a broad progressive coalition that includes everyone. So, and does, however, if those folks are also like, yeah, because there's already too many Muslims here, right, guys? That's something that I have a line around.
I think there's a lot of overlap on extreme right and extreme left because they do both hate the establishment. They do both hate medical insurance companies in America. They do both hate the fact that, politicians can do so much stock investments and they can have insider information on stocks. They hate all of these things, right? But then there's a bunch of fundamental core values, for example, like trans people having rights or immigrants having rights, where they vehemently disagree on. One sides with, ideas that goes along fascism. The other one sides with no, we should let people in and give people the rights that they deserve. So I think there could be a possibility where these two extreme facts of the politics, end up coming together and work. AOC and Matt Gaetz had a bill. They introduced a bill together where it banned politicians from being able to do stock trading. I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously, it's possible, right? I don't think it's very likely.
But I do want to ask, we all hate Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, but in practice, is what you're doing that different from if you were to get invited to Mar-a-Lago, Cenk, wouldn't you go?
Oh, I would definitely go. And so, okay, so
to open lines of discussion.
Yeah, so good question. So let me address it. So Mika and Joe were very clear. They said we went down there because we're scared. And they wanted to court power and get access again. So to me, what is that about? That's about their ego. That's about their career. That's about their money, etc. For me, why would I go to Mar-a-Lago? Well, I'm not going to ask for any money. I never do. I don't. That's not what I do. And I don't care about their positions. I don't want to be in the Trump administration. I don't care about any of that. What do I care about? I care about policy. So I believe that if I'm in a room with Trump, I can convince him on at least one policy. Okay. And I know no one believes that. But just put me in a room with him, okay? And I'm not going to walk out of it. And if he says no to the policy, right, then I'm gone. And I gave it my best shot, and it didn't work, okay? But at least I tried.
There's a lot to unpack here. Do I think he would be able to do that? No, unless you're a part of a group or you're a human being that has billions of dollars and you can use money to sway his political opinion, I don't think you're going to be able to sway Donald Trump's political opinion. Call me a pessimist, but good luck, though.
Remember, Trump likes to be popular. So that is a place where you can show him, hey, look at these populist positions, economically populist positions, which are overwhelmingly popular. Do that. So a good example is cut the Pentagon instead of cutting Medicare, right?
What do you think the probability? I wanted to ask you a question. What do you think under Doge? What is the probability that the Pentagon is cut versus what every single Republican ultimately wants, and that's why this guy is their Trojan horse, cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid? What's the probability they actually cut the Pentagon instead? I'm giving it a 4% chance on Polymarket.
Yeah. We should do a bet on there.
Let's do a bet.
So, no, I've got it at 20%. So not very high, but higher than what you got it at. 20% that they cut the Pentagon. So 80% that they won't. But now there's a fighter's chance that they do.
In
what is the chance that they
comparison,
try
like
to
they'd
cut
rather-
Medicare or Social? Hold
Yeah.
on. What is the chance that they try to cut Medicare or Social Security? 60%. So that's still much more likely, right?
Yes.
And I've started to see And by the way, here's another reason to communicate. I now am seeing right-wing hosts talking about cutting Social Security. So they're coming for Social Security.
What's going on, Franti?
Yeah, all right. Let's do some unpacking here. That was a lot. So I'm actually very glad that Cenk went on this podcast or this show, whatever you want to call it, because I think he gave us a lot of insight on how he thinks and what his thought process is, because this whole time I truly didn't understand what he was trying to do or what the thought process was in it, to be completely honest, because I have personally never seen a left-leaning commentator go on so many Republican shows and bash leftists, so I was like, I don't really know what's going on. Number one, he admitted that he's a centrist Democrat. Number two, he said that he's doing this because he wants to essentially work with them against populists in the swamp. I mean, he didn't use the word the swamp. He might as well have. That's basically what he was talking about the whole time. But the problem is he wants to work with a party that is leaning towards a lot of ideologies that aligns with fascism. So I think the ideology here is if I can't beat them, I'm going to be them kind of thing. And it's kind of giving that, because I've seen him vehemently be against Donald Trump for a very long time. But I think now that Donald Trump is reelected, he's kind of in the camp of like, well, I'm going to try my best to insert myself in these circles and hopefully I can do some things with this admin, right? Which is peak delusion. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think he's definitely causing way more harm than good. 100%. That's what I'm always going to be thinking. Because the thing is, if you alienate everyone on your side, if you go on and you call Sam Cedar a grifter and the Surf's a grifter and all these other channels a grifter on one of the biggest, platforms, Hassan's stream, but then you go on stage with Charlie Kirk and you're very nice to people who don't believe trans people should have basic human rights, you're not going to make a lot of friends on our side. You're not going to make a lot of friends. You're going to have people like me reacting to every single podcast interview you have, and I'm sure that's not, very fun for you. I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed. I expected better, but I think he's fully committed to this life. I think he's fully committed to trying to sway people's opinions and go against the populist and somehow work with Republicans to pass things. I don't really know what that even looks like, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. There's just a lot to unpack, and I think it's just more disappointment that I'm feeling now than anything, because he's really serious about his beliefs here and what he's doing and his crusade, and I just, anyways, thank you so much for watching my channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you can get the notifications, and I'll see you next time.